let's talk about the basics of 3D printing. And so let's get to the most rudimentary level. What is 3D printing? Well, it is a manufacturing process. It is additive layering manufacturing is exactly what it is. Now, we think of 3D printing as this emerging new technology, but it's really not. 3D printing has been around for about 35 years. However, it came out of patent about 10 years ago. And so that opened the world of 3D printing to a much wider audience and really brought it in to the education sphere. So again, we think of it as emerging, but really it is a very well-established tech already. Now, as I said, we consider 3D printing additive layering manufacturing. So you can see here on this little video that I have on screen that what you see there's a little frog being printed up on one of my printers. And so basically, if you want to think about the schematics, the engineering of a 3D printer, let's take a look at a schematic of it. So the 3D printing process starts with a filament, a spool of plastic filament. So we start with 3D printer filament. That plastic filament runs through an extruder and into what we know as the hot end, a heated nozzle, where that filament is immediately melted. That melted plastic is deposited layer upon layer on a typically heated print bed. And those 2D layers build up to create a three-dimensional object. And so that is known as FDM printing, fused deposition modeling. There's SLA printing too, and that's a resin type of printing. That's not what we're going to be talking about today. Today, we're going to be talking about the FDM style of 3D printing. And again, fused deposition modeling, just one melted layer of plastic built up upon the other until we have a three-dimensional object. So how does the 3D printing process work? Well, really, we can describe it in three pretty simple steps. First, we start with a digital model, a 3D model. So where can you get that 3D model? Well, you can design it in CAD, or you can download it off of the internet, or you can scan it with a 3D scanner. And we'll get to more specifics here in just a second. So we start the process with the 3D model itself. Then that 3D model is then opened in slicing software. So we open that 3D model, which is typically an STL file, in slicing software. And that divides up that object into layers so the printer knows how to print the object. So first we start with the model. We then open that model in the slicing software and slice it. And then that code is sent to the printer for printing. And so that after the slicing software renders that image into slices, we send that code to the printer to be built layer upon layer. Now, I've got a little bit more of a detailed slide on that. So let's move down here to slide number 11 if you're following along. So here we have 3D printing in 3 steps. One is design. So we have to start with a 3D model file. That's typically an STL file. And we can find those files, or we can design those models as well. So when you're just starting out printing, probably the easiest way to start out is to go to the many repository websites that are on the internet and download existing STL files. There are great websites like Thingiverse and Prusa Printers, and there's links right there on slide number 11. And there are millions upon millions of 3D model files available that you can download and print up. Truthfully, I really started there, and I've kind of stayed there too. I've not gotten into a ton of the design software yet. However, I do download things from the internet all the time. So first step is to download off the internet. Now, also you can design objects using CAD software, computer aided design. And there are some great tools and software packages out there that we'll talk about for CAD. And then the third way is to scan an object with a 3D scanner. Now, we're not going to talk about 3D scanners today here at our webinar. That's a little bit more of an advanced concept, but I do have a 3D scanner that I'd like to recommend, and it's just a great little smartphone app, and it's called Polycam. And Polycam is a great 3D modeling app that you can easily install on your smart device. And it's really, really good. Okay, so step one is design. Get your 3D model file. Step two is slice. So now you need to take that 3D model file, that STL file, and you need to divide it up into very fine layers. And they're tiny little layers, typically 0.05 to 0.3 millimeters. So they're very, very thin layers. And those layers are laid down on that print bed by that hot end, layer upon layer upon layer, until you get your 3D object. There are great slicing software packages out there, and the two best ones that are on the market, Cura and Prusa Slicer, are free and they're open source. And we'll talk about them in detail here in just a moment. So that's step two. Step one is design. Step two is slice. Step three is print. Now you have sliced that object. You're going to send that code, it's known as G code, to your 3D printer for printing. And so some printers are network enabled, so they'll connect to your Wi-Fi, and you can send the code to the printer over your Wi-Fi if it's a network capable printer. Other models of printers have a flash drive, a USB drive that you just save your file to that and then plug it into your printer and print. And even other printers use an SD card instead of a USB, so that you just download that file to your SD card and then just plug it right into your printer and print. So again, it's really not quite as complicated as a lot of people think it is.